Protests plundering the polls for Dems? Well, then call them off. Is this why we're seeing them finally being cleaned up? We'll have that plus 2 firecrackers today for news analysis. Miriam Shaw from Moms on a Mission and Deanna Lorraine from Shots Fired. The news you need to know, but with solutions and hope. This is Christy Lee with Get Free. Now, OMG just released another whopper, a new report exposing the weaponization of the CIA against President Trump and his associates, including his ex-wife. Now, we knew, of course, this was going on, but it's always better when you can get these scumbags to admit it themselves. Watch this.
Amjad talks about how the CIA kept information from Trump.
We kept information from him.
Say one more time.
We kept information from him.
From Trump?
Yes. He's an idiot. There are certain people that would give him a high-level overview but never give it any details. You know why? His whole leak those details.
Amjad Fasisi states the higher-ups within the intel community, including CIA directors Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel, and the upper levels of their staffs colluded to withhold information from sitting President Trump.
So the agencies kind of like all got together and said, we're not going to tell Trump.
The higher-ups.
The higher-ups.
We put it this way, the executive staff. We're talking about the director and his subordinates.
Like what titles are they? They're
Director of the CIA.
Director of the CIA would keep.
Yes.
Are you guys still watching him?
I would say yes.
Like, it sounds like you guys are still watching him and his team.
Of course we are. Nothing goes by without somebody watching.
Amjad Fasisi also states as fact that Trump is under constant surveillance and even claims they are spying on his ex-wife.
And we also have people that monitor his ex-wife.
So you guys had human sources.
How do you think we get information?
Like wiretapping? Is that what?
Steal it.
How did you guys figure out that Trump was colluding with the Russians? Did you guys use...
It's just human intelligence.
So the intel community was able to use FISA to spy on Trump and his team. And that's how we found out that he was colluding with the Russians. Was it the CIA or the NSA that spied on Trump?
So it could be all of them.
So you're saying that your agency, CIA...
A lot of the agencies...
And it goes on and on from there, just burying themselves. You know, I don't know how exactly I feel about honey trapping, but it gets the job done. It gets them, and, you know, they should be smarter than this, right? They're burying themselves, but they certainly aren't that smart. But again, this is just the latest piece of evidence to vindicate what President Trump and his supporters have been raising the alarm about for years. There is a deep state, and it is indeed after Trump. Another thing to note about this is that the CIA apparently did release a statement after this came out saying that this is not true, it's totally false, and this is a former employee with them. But it appears that this is what got him fired, because reportedly Kash Patel says that there's a green badge showed that he's probably bragging about trying to show to that date of his, and that green badge you wouldn't have, that would be taken away if you were a former employee. So it seems that they canned him, and then so that they could be able to say, oh, this isn't true, this is a former employee. But anyways, on going after Trump, and therefore going after all of us, if they can do this to Trump, they can do all these same tactics to any of us. On that note, Matt Gaetz posted a Trump prosecutor pleading the fifth when asked if he broke the law investigating Trump. Unbelievable. Watch this.
On the advice of counsel, I'm not going to answer that question, sir. Privilege against self-incrimination.
And did you knowingly break any laws when investigating President Trump?
Objection.
Same response.
Did you break any laws when you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection.
Same response.
Ms. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights when you worked on the Trump investigation?
Objection.
I have the same response to your question.
Mr. Pomerantz, did you
so.
violate any person's constitutional rights while you worked at the Manhattan DA's office?
Objection.
Same answer.
Did you misuse any federal funds while investigating President Trump?
Same response.
Did you misuse any federal funds while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Same response.
And did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were investigating President Trump?
Objection.
Same response.
Did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Now it goes on from there, of course. What's most disturbing when you see things like this is it's just this arrogancy that they know that they're doing things that are wrong. They know that it's absolutely true. It's all political. And they just brazenly go about it because they know there won't be any accountability. Because, after all, we have a uniparty. We don't have hardly anyone to seek accountability. Who needs these Democrats that betray Trump and Christian conservatives when you have so many Republicans that are willing to do the same? If there is one thing that the Democrat Party has that the Republican Party objectively lacks, it is unity. It's difficult to get Republicans to unilaterally support an issue because there is always a faction of the party crippled by a fear of losing their moderate label, thus resulting in less invites on mainstream talk shows and to cocktail parties. It's a phenomenon particularly noticeable when it comes to social issues. Case in point, Kansas could have banned cutting off children's genitals this week, but instead, the Kansas legislature failed to override the governor's veto of a ban on transgender medical procedures for children after 2 Republican lawmakers flipped their votes on Monday. It's even more pathetic when you realize real work is getting done to advance progressive social agenda on the Democrat side. And then the Arizona Senate voted Wednesday to repeal the state's 1864 abortion ban, sending a measure to the Democratic governor that would end weeks of turmoil and keep in place a 15-week abortion limit enacted in 2022. The vote was backed completely by Democrats, of course. They're unified, but it even had the support of 2 Republicans. However, not all hope is lost, though they can be demoralizing at times. The GOP does have some strong fighters. Congresswoman Harriet Hageman is one of them. And here she is just recently holding the CDC and Anthony Fauci accountable for lying about the death jab. Watch this.
The fact is that we know that a lot of the information that was being peddled by this White House was untrue. We know that the CDC lied. We know that Anthony Fauci lied. We know that Mr. Biden lied. And you were pushing propaganda.
Would the gentleman
very much. No, I will not.
I'd love to know the source of your
This is my
citation.
time. I think it's fair to say that the position of President Biden was to get as many Americans to take the COVID vaccine as possible. Is that also true?
I would agree with that characterization.
And yes or no, was your routine dialogue with social media companies part of a strategy to achieve this goal of the president?
Congressman, we engage with these social media
Please answer the
companies
question,
who
yes or no.
They had stated
Was that the purpose of engaging with the social media companies? Yes or no?
Congressman, the engagement with social media companies
The goal of getting people vaccinated, correct?
in the context of the president's efforts.
Yes, to encourage the American people to take the vaccine. Was that a strategy that you and Mr. Slavitt came up with, or were you working with other people within the White House?
Congresswoman, certainly the effort to make sure as many people in America were vaccinated should not be.
My question is, who came up with the strategy to work with social media companies to further that agenda? You realize you're under oath, don't you, Mr. Flaherty?
Congressman,
Do you realize you're under oath? You realize that you've sworn to tell the truth? Why did you think that reaching out to these social media companies was a productive use of your time if you never had any influence with them?
Well, Congresswoman, certainly these social media companies had a set of policies that they stated.
Why did you care whether they enforced their policies? What difference did that make to you? Are you part of the contract? Is it your responsibility to enforce policies of private companies?
Congresswoman, I think it's important to remember the fact that this is, these kinds of engagements with people who publish information are standard across government.
You can try to gaslight us as much as you want to and try to act like your activities didn't have any influence. But one of the things I noticed, Mr. Flaherty, is that you use the F word an awful lot in your email correspondence with the social media companies for emphasis. We all know why.
I love it. She's so good, and she doesn't back down, and very confident in going after them, holding them accountable, which is what we need more of. We need more of that so bad. If only they were all like that. In economic news, gold prices continue to surge this week. They reached a historic $2,400 per ounce this week. Analysts also predicted prices could reach $3,000 before the next business cycle shift, marking another 25% increase from current levels. The rise is due to the strong demand among central banks. According to WND, quote, central banks have been steadily increasing their gold holdings, with a notable turnaround from down 77 tons in 2022's third quarter to 361 tons in the same period of 2023. This trend, driven by a desire for security amidst geopolitical risks and a fear of over-reliance on the U.S. dollar, especially as the Chinese yuan loses its grip as the world's second reserve currency. Translation? Now is a great time to invest. And there's only one precious metal company I trust to take care of that for me. Watch this. Get free with Christy Lee, and that includes getting free from tying up all your money in the banks we can no longer trust,
greed works,
the market, which can face manipulation, and getting ahead of any central bank digital currency schemes that might be headed our way. In times of uncertainty, the wisdom of diversifying with gold and silver shines brighter than ever. Genesis Gold Group offers a path to invest in these precious metals, echoing the biblical principles of wisdom and preparation. So go to getklgold.com to get your free gold and silver guide and get started. That's getklgold.com. Also, to break up the bad, we're always looking for the good, something to celebrate, something to be inspired by, or something to just laugh at. Here's today's good news contribution. It's the Avengers' never before seen footage. Check it out.
And now with these stones, I will wipe out half of all life on Earth.
Wait a minute, I've seen this. You must be with the World Economic Forum.
What?
Oh, come on. You know, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, population control. Surely these guys have some street cred with murderous intergalactic space villains.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What? Really? So you're literally here just to kill half the population and leave?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, crap, you're not even close to the most evil thing on this planet.
What do you mean?
Well, it all started with... So in other words, for over a century, planet Earth has been secretly ruled by a bloodthirsty cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who engineer diseases to kill us, manipulate our money supply for their own profit, contaminate our food and water, propagandize us 24/7, and rig our elections, all to make way for the Grandmaster plan to wipe out the vast majority of the population and enslave the rest of us in an inescapable social credit caste system in which the serf class subsists off bugs and synthetic meat while the elites eat steak and hunt us for sport.
So when you put it that way, I guess I'm not even needed here anymore.
All you can do is make light of it anymore. You know, it's too depressing if you don't. So make sure you're looking for things to laugh at, and make sure that when you do find them, that you share them with us. So if you would like to join my editorial board, send me some positivity, inspiration, something like that to make us laugh, break up the bad. Here is my dedicated email for that effort, KLGetGoodNews@gmail.com. That's KLGetGoodNews@gmail.com. You can send us clips, your favorite verse, whatever you want, and we'll either give you a shout out or you can send it to us anonymously. And we sure do appreciate the effort. Let's keep some good news in the mix. There's something peculiar happening in the aviation industry. In addition to the increase in delays and emergency landings, there's also a trail of deaths connected to airplane manufacturer Boeing. A second Boeing whistleblower is now dead due to sudden illness. Former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems, Joshua Dean, accused Spirit of ignoring defects in the production of the 737 MAX, a series with a reputation for crashes and safety issues. One 737 MAX incident occurred in January when the emergency door flew off an Alaska Airlines plane mid-flight. I believe we have video of this, forcing the pilots to make an emergency landing in Portland. Let's check this out.
This wasn't even the emergency door. We're at the end of the plane, so the emergency door's right there. It was just a piece of the plane.
Okay, so there was no one seated there. There was thankfully no one seated near the window. Yeah, they just said. I said that I thought we were fine. I take it back. Yeah, I thought we were too.
I can't imagine how weird and scary a situation like that would be. And what's even more terrible about it is that you have people that have been warning that these problems can occur. And what's even weirder is that Dean, the one that was talking about that these problems could occur, is the second person to blow the whistle on Boeing and then die soon after. Less than 2 months ago, another whistleblower, John Barnett, died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Here to discuss is Deanna Lorraine, a former 2020 GOP candidate for Congress who ran against Nancy Pelosi, and show host for her show Shots Fired on Rumble, covering new culture and current events. Thank you so much for coming on with me, Deanna.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here, Christy.
Yeah.
I got my toddler in the background, apparently didn't get the memo that it's nap time, so I apologize if you hear anything, but he's also very startled and shaken by these Boeing whistleblowers that are just suddenly dropping dead.
So Deanna, what do you make of all these mysterious deaths? Sounds like a Hillary Clinton situation.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, here's the deal. His name is Josh Dean. He's only 45 years old, and he was in perfect health before. I mean, literally perfect health. Apparently, he was known for being healthy and a runner and in really good health up until 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he came down with a sudden mystery illness, a mystery illness. Always surrounding these deaths, there's a bunch of mystery. So 2 weeks ago, he came down with a mystery illness. He had to be hospitalized very quickly. And over the last couple days, then he was intubated. He was on dialysis. Then he had to be airlifted to another hospital. They said that he had blood clots, stroke. When they tested him, he also had influenza. He tested positive for influenza and COVID and other things. And to be honest with you, and then, of course, the end result is that he died after this for no known cause other than this mystery death. Now, this sounds eerily familiar, obviously, to about 500 other witnesses in these types of situations. And of course, John Barnett, just not even 2 months ago, the other major Boeing whistleblower, was also found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head in the parking lot the night before his third day of his deposition for this major lawsuit against Boeing. I'm sorry, but people don't just show up dead in the parking lot with self-inflicted gunshot wounds when they're on their third day of a deposition, which he was very excited about delivering. And his family and the law firm that was representing him said that he was in perfectly healthy shape. He was happy he wasn't depressed or suicidal. And now, boom, 2 months later, the other whistleblower shows up dead as well over this mystery illness. I mean, honestly, they can't get any more obvious and brazen about it at this point. We talk about Vince Foster, about Seth Rich, so many other witnesses in these high-profile cases, especially those that are either connected to the military-industrial complex or the Clintons, show up dead. What are they trying to hide, Christy? Why are they trying to hide this information so much? These whistleblowers were supposed to reveal especially bombshell information about how Boeing has historically been cutting corners and having lots of quality control issues, and planes are going down. So the proof is in the pudding. Boeing is messing up purposely. They're breaking their planes, or they're not inspecting their quality control, through their planes correctly. And these whistleblowers are trying to blow the whistle, and they're showing up dead. So it's pretty sinister and pretty nefarious, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be bad enough if it was just the one. I mean, that was already raising eyebrows, but then, suddenly we have another whistleblower who just happens to have a mystery illness. I mean, it's so brazen that it's distressing how brazen it is. And if you think about these families who probably were afraid about their loved ones speaking out, and then the worst does happen, I mean, that's got to feel so isolating. So it's up to people like us, people like you, to continue to to not just blow the whistle, but because obviously that's dangerous, but
Yeah.
sound the alarm and get people to not forget it and be like, this needs looked into. This is just a little bit too coincidental. You know, do you think it will
Yeah.
help if people would just continue to ask questions?
Yeah, but it seems like so it's weird that the mainstream media aren't really covering this. I mean, CNN, most of these media outlets aren't really covering these deaths. Why? Because probably if we talk about this being a major coincidence and this being something that's a pattern, with these whistleblowers suddenly dying, then they would have to kind of open the whole can of worms of Seth Rich and Vince Foster and all these other witnesses historically that have been found dead under mysterious circumstances over the last 10 years or so. I mean, and it all leads back to the military industrial complex or the Clintons or the elites in some form or fashion. When there is somebody blowing the whistle on them and revealing damning information, they show up dead. That's the pattern. And it's scary, again, how brazen that they become. They almost know with certainty that they're going to get away with it because, again, the mainstream media are complicit with them. I mean, they're partners in their crimes. They cover up their crimes. They aid and abet their crimes. But we, normal reporters or people that have any kind of influence are trying to blow the whistle on these whistleblowers showing up dead and what might happen to us. We've seen Dr. Rashid Buttar, for instance.
Yeah.
He was in perfectly great health too. And then he had the same symptoms of this latest whistleblower that died suddenly, Josh Dean. He was suddenly hospitalized. He had a stroke. All of a sudden he was having blood clot issues, intubated, and then died. So it's pretty scary. I don't know if they're being sort of hit with some sort of a direct energy weapon, if they're being hit with someone's shaking their hands or pouring something in their drinks and they're poisoning them. But it seems very interesting that all these people who are whistleblowers, again, against the vaccine or against Boeing or the military industrial complex, they are showing up dead. What are they trying to hide? One of the things in particular that strikes me about Boeing and this whole new line of deaths is we have to think about what their greater agenda is. Now, some people are speculating that they're kind of cutting corners and missing all the quality control stuff because they're either being lazy or they're hiring too many DEI type workers who they're not hiring for quality. They're hiring people that are just black or transgender or something. Now that might be the case, that might be happening some of the time, but I think what the larger agenda is I believe they're purposely trying to make these parts malfunction because they want more plane crashes. And I believe that there's a concerted effort and agenda to kind of halt the travel industry or bring a lot of fear into people about traveling, about going into planes, about going anywhere so that people kind of stay into their own little pod and stay in their own little smart city and they don't have to worry about all of us people traveling everywhere so that they could have better control. They started rolling out this agenda, I believe, during COVID when we couldn't fly, we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't go on trains. And then with the vaccine, you can only fly if you have the vaccine or this or that. And then I don't know if you noticed, but in the last couple of years, it just seems like there's a lot of sort of fear being created around flying on planes, around traveling. So that's what I believe. If someone asks, hey, what do you think is the reason why Boeing is wanting to keep this silent or why they're wanting their planes to malfunction? I think that it's part of a greater agenda to keep us controlled, to keep us in our little pods, and to create fear in traveling. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, no, I think it makes sense because if you wonder, I mean, if it was just Boeing that was trying to keep this silent, would be one thing. But obviously, this is part of a bigger agenda because, I mean, to be able to have so much complicity in keeping it quiet with the federal government and the mainstream media all on board to, just brush this over. Obviously, it's part of a bigger agenda. And we already know they're pushing hard with the climate agenda. They don't want people flying and, the Taylor Swift can fly all over the place. I don't know if you've seen those memes
All
of her
their
going all
private
over the
jets,
place.
yeah, they can fly everywhere.
Yeah,
Klaus Schwab and everything.
but not as minions. They need to be able to control us. So I do think that's spot on. I mean, obviously, when you entertain the conspiratorial nature of the randomness of these deaths coinciding with the whistleblowing, it's not too much of a step further to acknowledge that this is part of a bigger agenda. But I wanted to ask you about your, political. You had tried to get in the game against Nancy Pelosi. Man, why can't we get rid of this lady? I mean, you just
I
look at her
know.
district, it's just a freaking mess. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I lived in California briefly, and I was just struck by when I went and voted. I just said my name. They didn't ask me for ID or any proof of anything. So
Right.
I
It's a
still don't
mess.
know if my vote counted or what when I lived in
Probably
California. But I'm
not.
like, has to be cheating going on when you have lifelong politicians that are clearly insider trading, and their districts are complete crap, like literal
Yeah.
poop on the ground,
Yeah.
and you have someone like you coming in and you can't get past it. I don't know, but what are your thoughts on moving forward with any political aspirations?
I would love to get back in the game again. I would not want to run in San Francisco and against Nancy Pelosi probably again, just because now that I see how locked in the votes are over there, how rigged the system is. And it was eye opening because a lot of the people that didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi, again, I believe most of those votes were fake anyways. But when I was on the ground talking to, thousands of people all the time, getting their weigh in on the situation, those that weren't voting for Nancy Pelosi were typically voting then for this other candidate, Shahid Buttar, who was even more far less left than her, had even more extremist far left views than her. So they weren't still voting for the Republican candidate. They still the people in San Francisco and in those areas are so brainwashed and indoctrinated that very few are still willing or able to connect the dots between how much of a shithole San Francisco is or LA is, and that being tied to Democrat liberal policies. They would rather choose someone even more far left, like someone like, Ocasio Cortez or someone in that sort of camp. So that was really disheartening too. I would rather be with, I would rather challenge someone that I really had a high likelihood of winning against, and in a city where, or a district where people, I believe that there's more hope and possibility for change. So yes, I definitely want to run again. I just have to, find the right opportunity and the right individual to run against.
Are you still in California then?
No, I fled. I was one of the
Good.
refugees that
Join the
fled from
club, like
California.
me.
Yeah. Yeah, no way. I mean, after COVID, who could live there anymore? The
Yeah.
prices for housing is gotten so insane and unaffordable, but the standard of living is terrible, and you're surrounded by all these liberal policies, and you couldn't get out of your homes. They were on such a tight lockdown over there that I would never want to go back because we're already
Yeah.
preparing for the next pandemic, possibly disease X or whatever else they're going to manufacture and roll out. So I don't want to be in any kind of liberal hellhole the next time something like this rolls around. It's going to be Texas or Florida for me. And
Yes,
that's where I'm
smart
in
lady.
right now. I'm in Texas.
Oh, and so am I. Great.
Yeah.
We're neighbors. Didn't even
Yeah,
know
we're
it.
neighbors.
Yes, and I love having other powerful, engaging moms. I know, it's tough doing this, trying to make a difference, and also be making a difference at home, because
Yes.
equally important, if not more important, in the home. And it's not easy. So I commend you for staying in the game, because I know from personal experience, it's not easy. But how can we check out your show and support you?
Definitely. I'm on the Stu Peters Network every Tuesday and Thursday nights. I host the show Shots Fired with Deanna Lorraine Tuesday, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, right after the Stu Peters show. And definitely follow me on Twitter, or X now, Deanna for Congress, and then Getter, Reddit, everything else, or Getter and Gab and everything is real Deanna Lorraine. Check me out, follow me, and definitely check out my show. I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for, again, staying in the fight and sounding the alarm for these whistleblowers. We need to stay on it. So thank you
We
so
try,
much.
but hey, I'm very happy. I'm not suicidal. I'm not homicidal, and I'm sure you are too. So,
Yeah, I know. I feel like we need to have that caveat on on our
yes,
shows. Like
every time.
maybe that should be our like TV hook line now.
Our little
Still
slogan,
not
yeah.
suicidal, and I'm signing off.
Yeah,
You know what I
we
mean?
should
Gotta
be.
have a
That should be our
disclaimer now.
tagline, our handle.
Oh my goodness. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you
Thank
again
you,
soon.
Christy. I appreciate it.
You bet.
God bless.
Yes. All right. Well, we constantly have to be not on the defense, but on the offense. We need to be one step ahead of them always because they're trying to kill us, like literally trying to kill us. They've been conspiring against our food, particularly beef, ahead of all these catastrophic events. They're putting all kinds of mystery injections in the meat. They are limiting our ability to get the meat. And I mean, they're even creating meat in a lab. I mean, for goodness sakes. So you need to make sure that you can stock up on your beef while you can. You can go to KLBeef.com, KLBeef.com, stock up on shelf-stable beef for a good price. And make sure you do it now. Get it now while you can, because who knows what's coming down the pike. My goodness. Watch this, and I'll see you on the other side. Let them eat bugs, they say, or lab-grown meat, or worse. No, we want our real beef. And we need to get free from the rising costs because the prices are skyrocketing. So you need to go to KLBeef.com, stock up on all American beef from ranches in Texas, from Prepper All Naturals. We don't want the mystery meat. This meat is no mRNA jabs ever. It's freeze-dried, stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for maximum shelf life. We're talking 10 plus years without refrigeration. We're not talking jerky. We're talking about something you can just soak in water for 15 minutes, ready to eat. And these are premium cuts: New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, chuck. Just use promo code KLB15 for 15% off your order. It was going to be another summer of love, all those peaceful protests, cities on fire, in this case, colleges on fire, windows broken, all that good stuff. Obviously, we know the left loves this. They love the disruption and all of that. And we were anticipating it was going to continue because they love this kind of stuff. But, suddenly we're seeing reports like this from the post-millennial that hundreds of arrests have been made. In this case, at UCL's Gaza camp, at least one officer was injured. They made all those arrests, broke that up, and we're seeing this across the nation at other colleges that they're actually holding the protesters accountable. They're actually making some arrests. They're actually recognizing it for what it is, a disruption. It's not free speech when you're preventing people from going to class based on if they're a Jew or not. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But why are they suddenly allowing there to be accountability? Why are they suddenly allowing police to go in and break it up? We didn't really see this happen when it came to the burning of cities. They didn't hop on that right away. Well, it looks like it's because the polling is not going in their favor. Turns out a lot of people don't like this disruption anymore. Maybe people aren't so comfortable with seeing Jews being held back, saying like, no, you're a Jew, you can't go to this class. Maybe the majority of people don't like seeing that kind of stuff. And it looks like they got the memo and they're trying to maybe backtrack on this effort and clean it up. Joe Scarborough explained why I think we're finally seeing some action, even to the point of, saying the quiet part aloud. One of the things I've always had an issue with when it comes to these news anchors and the way the media has become is their disrespect for the audience. Well, Joe, he just goes ahead and calls them stupid. Watch this.
The riots on college campuses, the riots at the Chicago Convention in '68, all of those things moved my family from being Democrats their entire life to being Republicans. I remember I was young, and I remember my parents asking, what in the world is going on in this country? And of course, they were raised in the Great Depression in rural Georgia. Kind of hard for them to hear rich kids on campus of Harvard or taking over campuses at Columbia. But if you're offended by this, please, I'm trying to help you. I don't want Donald Trump to get elected, all right?
There you go.
Trying to help you. If you're too stupid to figure that out, you change to another channel, because we're sorting through this as a country, and this is not helping. This is not helping the people of Gaza, and this is not helping those of us who want to fight fascism in America.
They always have to put that part in. It's ridiculous that they even say this, as there's literal Nazis on these campuses treating Jews poorly because they don't like supposedly don't like what's going on with the Palestine and Israel conflict. And he has the audacity to say that. But again, he reveals himself over and over again. These people are so they're so elitist, they're so arrogant that he literally is calling his audience stupid if they don't agree with him. Unbelievable. And then even Al Sharpton, I never thought there would be a day that we would agree with Al Sharpton, but he is even on board with this new position. And again, make no mistake, if this was working for them, if this was helping them in the polls, they would continue to say, bring it on. They would rail against the police for breaking it up. But no, they know that this isn't being received well. And so that's the only reason why they're changing their tune. But watch this.
How do the Democrats, how do all of us on that side say January 6th was wrong if you could have the same pictures going on college campuses?
Good Lord, don't make a parallel with January 6th.
You lose the moral high ground.
That has happened, though.
Okay,
that has happened.
So we know what's going on.
They did not like that. They did not like Al Sharpton making a comparison, because like Dan Bongino always says, who I'm a big fan of, it's not about hypocrisy to them. It's hierarchy. We can say it's okay in this case for us to be violent and run into college campuses, break windows, etc., even into federal buildings when it's for their right cause, but it's not okay in the other way. But you cannot say that out loud. Al Sharpton is probably going to have to apologize for that later. But here to discuss is a patriot mom. Her name is Miriam Shaw. She has become a host of Moms on a Mission, and she has interviewed so many high-profile guests and really bringing moms like myself together to know what's important and to know what we should be talking about and fighting for. Moms on a Mission, her podcast analyzes education, news, and family from a biblical and conservative perspective. Well, thank you for coming on with me, Miriam.
Thank you, Chrissy, for having me, and thank you to your listeners. It's so great to be here today.
So great to have you with me. And for those that don't know, you work very closely with Clay Clark, even your studio right next to his. So that's got to be wild. You said it gets loud sometimes.
Yeah, and he's back. He was gone the last few days. It was a little quiet, so we might hear him today. So inadvertently.
You just never know with him. So that makes things exciting. What do you make of what we're seeing happen on college campuses? As a mother, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and out myself. I've actually been that parent that's been telling my kids, maybe you should consider not going to college. I feel like I almost feel ashamed to admit that, but I've been actually encouraging my kids not to go to college because I just don't know if there's a point to it anymore. I think there's better ways that you can go. I mean, obviously back in the day, it might've been a good choice, but now I'm encouraging them not to go. There, I said it, I outed myself. But if they were going to college and if I was like helping them pay these bills, it would be outrageous to see that they can't even have effective learning in that condition, right?
No, and I support you. I've actually talked to my son and said the same thing, actually. I mean, these are indoctrination camps, Christy, and I really took a lot of time, and I've studied this. I study it. My friends and my husband, they all think I'm obsessed with this, which I am, because I'm trying to make sense of what's happening, not just on the college campuses, but in schools, in Christian universities, Christian schools. You see this Marxist playbook playing out, and it's very confusing, Christy, because I majored in psychology at Oral Roberts University, and language is so important. And when it's used and twisted to confuse people, and then when they react to something, then you use their reaction against them. So as I've studied this, I realized that Marxism, this war on Christianity, started over 100 years ago. And we look at and we see where these protests started. Columbia University. Make no mistake, this is not coincidental. I mean, this is where the teacher school, Frankfurt, the Frankfurt school came over. The Marxists came over when they got kicked out with Nazi Germany, and Hitler shut down their education, and they tried to go to Switzerland, and they couldn't work in Geneva, Switzerland. So they came to Columbia. And sadly, we brought them over, and we were already having our American Marxist in action, John Dewey. He was working for several years getting these government schools set up, stripping the kids from the church and the home and their education areas there, and started these government schools. And so he had been doing that for several years before these Marxists came over. But they came over and they set up shop at Columbia University. And so that's why you see they started in the universities. They call them, Pete Hegseth wrote a book called Battle for the American Mind. I highly recommend reading that book. But he talks about these universities, he calls them command heights. And he talks about how the Marxists captured these universities, these Ivy League schools, and then they started disseminating their propaganda to other universities and then down into high schools and elementary. But that's where it started. And so look, and you see all the years this indoctrination has been going on. These kids have been taught to hate America. We've been taught that our country is systemically racist, that we're awful, we're terrible. Yet our southern border is wide open with thousands upon thousands pouring in because our country is so awful, right? So, but this has been going on for years. And so when you look at Marxism, people study, oh, it's not too bad. It's socialism, but whatever. Well, you look at, this is how Mao killed millions and millions of people in his reign. And this is what Hitler wrote about Marxism in his book, Mein Kampf. And he said that this is the tactic he used for his revolution in Germany. So make no mistake, we are in the middle of a cultural revolution.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very obvious when you have the professors and the faculty joining in with the students and basically doing the current thing. I mean, and that's what kills me about all of this is that they're so lockstep with whatever they feel that their marching orders are. And this was the current thing. Oh, now we all have to protest outside of the campuses, and it's just been disgusting to watch. But you talk about Ivy League schools and their permeation of this Marxism ideals and the rejection of God. And I went to Bowling Green State University in Ohio and majored in broadcast journalism, which is how I was able to go on and to be a news anchor. But it's crazy to me that in my required courses, my core classes, one of the first classes I had to take at the university was a class called secular humanism. I mean, and this was a required course for my degree. And thankfully I was able to be prepared for a course like that talked, covered Virginia Woolf and Nietzsche, all these people that had STDs, or committed suicide, but they're great minds, of course, somehow. But I was prepared for it because I went to Summit Ministries in Colorado that still has a summer camp that you can go to this day for college-age kids to go to and get a crash course in philosophy and theology and knowing what you believe and critical thinking, being able to ask the right questions. And because of that camp that I went to, when I was in this secular humanism class, they were talking about there's no such thing as truth. And so I was able to raise my hand and ask the professor, is that true? Because I was prepared to challenge. But if there's no one in class to challenge these professors, then they truly are dumbing the students down. So people should definitely check Summit Ministries out. I want you to check that out too for your kids. I'm sending my daughter this summer so that she can be prepared for whatever indoctrination comes her way. At least there's a solution to this. Now, going along with this is we've seen wildly anti-Semitism basically applauded. I have a minority friend that was applauding what was going on. And it's wait a minute, you're a black male that is applauding a Jew being blockaded from entering because he's a Jew. Tell me how that makes sense. I mean, this is insane, right?
Well, that's the reason why your friend can do that is because critical thinking has been ultimately really destroyed in our government education. And so our history has been whitewashed. We don't study rhetoric and things of that nature anymore. I mean, when you look to see how our presidents were educated and then you look to see how kids are educated now, it is so massively different. And we're not really taught to question. We're really taught just to believe a narrative. And then certain things are stripped out of our kids' education. I mean, our kids don't learn about communism anymore. I mean, civics, you don't have those classes really that much anymore. And so that is the problem, Christy, is that we have been so dumbed down and we've been stripped of real, true history, and we've been taught what to think instead of how to think. And make no mistake, I mean, this is how you capture a nation. When you can capture the heart of the children, you can capture the heart of the nation. And so they've been trained to believe this. And I just had She Van Fleet on a few days ago. I'm getting ready to upload that show on my Moms on a Mission podcast on Rumble. And I highly recommend everybody watch it. It was so incredibly fascinating. And what she said, it just struck me. And she said, Christy, no one is safe. No one is safe. The first killing by the Red Guards in China during the Cultural Revolution occurred just a few, 2 or 3 months after the Cultural Revolution started, May 16th, 1966. The first killing was in August. So we can say, oh, that was so fast. But Mao had indoctrinated those kids for 17 years. And guess who was murdered? It was the principal of a middle school. So these female middle school students murdered their principal. And this principal was the one who had indoctrinated them for all these years. So, it's just no one, she said, Miriam, no one is safe with socialism, not one person.
But then we have the reaction. So obviously we're all seeing that this is disgusting to watch. And so then they roll out something that sounds really good, an anti-Semitism bill, and they pass it. But there were saying, and I felt this way about the TikTok ban too, it sounds good to have a TikTok ban on Chinese infiltration, social media. Yeah, let's ban it. But you always have to look deeper because these people are so sneaky. And so with the TikTok ban, it gives power to control other social media. And then with this anti-Semitism bill that just passed, Thomas Massey was railing against it. He was talking about how it's too vague, basically. He had posted his opposition and it was like, how are we to, are people going to get in trouble for just questioning the narrative, essentially, when it comes to anything that involves Jews? So what was your take on this bill and why it was being passed?
I'm very concerned about it. I was with you on the TikTok ban as well. I mean, this is all part of the plan. So what they do is they create, we saw it with COVID, you create a crisis so that the solution is better than the crisis itself. You make people so desperate that, whether it's universal basic income, when, people don't have money. And so they'll do whatever it takes to take this solution by these Marxists. And this is the thing that's concerning to me about this bill, HR 6090. And when you look at number 9, so this comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, so IHRA, and their definition of what anti-Semitism is. It does say when they passed that in 2016, or when they exposed that in 2019, they said it was not legally binding and that it was a working definition, if you will. But number 9 on this says, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, and the example was claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis. And that number 9 is what Christians are really concerned about, because now you're getting into the basis of Christianity and us believing that the Jews killed Jesus. And now, see, they created this crisis, right? They have all these protests and all this. And so now, we need to respond. And this is all part of dialectical political warfare. They marry a truth with a lie. Yes, we have a problem on the campuses. Yes, we shouldn't say these awful things to Jews, right? That's the truth. Well, the lie is, well, now I need to come in with a solution, and I need to start banning free speech. And I need to start banning these core elements of religion. And that is the problem. And you think about, what is dialectical political warfare? I mean, Christy, these folks have a playbook. They are very organized. This is not spontaneous. This isn't inorganic. This is absolutely planned. And they have a playbook, and they have something called the reaction is the real action. And they try to get the conservatives to get caught off guard and for them to react. And then they capture them in the reaction. And so I believe the Uniparty is just following right along with this, and they're banning us, and they're going to punish us as we try to live out our religion, if you will, our relationship with the Lord, with this seemingly helpful ban.
Yeah, and it's scary. I mean, there's so much coming about that is threatening, again, the First Amendment and just our basic right to speak biblical truths as Christians. And this is just another example of that. I'm proud of those that are speaking out. I see that Owen Schroyer was talking about be aware that they're going to try and use this bill against Christians. And I think that is so profound of him to recognize that. And I'm so proud of the people on this side that are willing to ask those questions instead of jumping on the bandwagon of something that sounds good. But I know that you're so passionate as, a working mama. You came into hosting your own podcast from being involved in the school boards. What are you particularly passionate about working on and talking about when it comes to your podcast?
Well, I interviewed quite a lot of different people. I mean, I'm so passionate about this Marxist agenda because it has captured, it is being used by the globalists to capture every arm of our society so that they can destroy America and just strip us of our moral fabric. Whether you think of, the military industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, every educational industrial complex. When you look at all of these arms, it's like, and that's what I talk about with these guests. I interviewed the physician who started Do No Harm, Dr. Stanley Goldfarb. We talk about DEI and how that has captured medicine. I've had on General Flynn. We talk about the military arm, how that's been captured by these Marxists. And I have on Dr. Peter McCullough, and I've had Laura Trump on and talked to her, and just everybody who's in these different camps and talking about the Marxist cultural revolution that's occurring, and then what we can do to push back and fight back as Americans. And then, of course, with the mom angle, what we can do with our kids' education, and then what we can do just to fight back, generally. But I try to interview guests who are in a few of them in each of these camps so we can learn what's going on, learn the truth. And then, the 3 pillars of the Moms on a Mission podcast are to educate, awake, and activate. And so once you're educated and awakened to the truth, then the onus is on us, Christy, to become activated and ask the Holy Spirit, what can I do to become activated to help protect our children and save our nation? And so that's really the whole goal. I didn't really want another job. Wasn't looking for this, but I felt like the Holy Spirit said, we need the truth, and then we need ideas and things that we can do to push back to protect our children and save our nation.
Absolutely. And that goes right along with what I'm passionate about now, is making sure we have solutions and hope. And that requires being activated, using the tools that God gives us. Well, how can folks check out your show?
So I'm on many streaming platforms, but my favorite is Rumble because I can upload all the content there. And at YouTube, I think I get a third of my content on YouTube, because if it's anything with injections or even Marxism, that you just can't put a lot of your stuff there. So Rumble is the best place to go. And if folks just download the Rumble app and type in Moms on a Mission at the top and click the follow icon, then they'll never miss a show. But you can also learn more about our mission and support us at momsonamission.net. That is our website. And then we'd love to hear from people at momsonamission.net.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Miriam, and keep on the good fight and being a great example of a good mom that's taken action.
Thank you, Christy, so much.
You bet. All right. And with all this mom work, you got to get some rest. And so what better way to do that than to pick yourself up some premium pillows from MyPillow. You can go to mypillow.com/KL. And there's not just pillows. I've become a fan of the PJs, the slippers, the sandals. You can even pick up yourself some towels. I love the bath towels. I have not tried the beach towels yet, but swimming season's almost here. So get yourself some great products and support a great cause, a great person like Lindell. You can go to mypillow.com/KL. Use promo code KL to get a discount. I believe they still have that $25 extravaganza going on. So pick yourself out 3 things for just $25. And when I mean things, I mean like you can get a whole towel set for $25 or a whole, set of pillows for $25. Get 3 of them so that you can get your shipping free when you use promo code KL. All right. And coming up, we are going to, we're going to have our scripture of the day, because we are closing out the show today. We have our scripture, Psalm 112, 7 and 8. Here it is. He will not fear bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. His heart is firm. He will not fear, but will look with satisfaction on his enemies. I love this verse because I keep on talking about how I don't want to have too much bad news, but the bottom line is the Word of God says we don't even have to fear the bad news because we can trust in the Lord. He will not fear bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. We do not need to fear, and we can look with satisfaction on our enemies. Isn't that a good thing to think about? Well, if you would like to dig deeper into the Bible with me, I have a daily devotional show. It is very low produced, but you can join me and my little group there on my locals channel, ChristyLeeTV.locals.com. And we're digging into the Word of God every day. Come as you are, come in your PJs like me, and dive into God's Word with me. All right, well, thanks again for watching, and don't forget to spread the word, share with friends. Get free with Christy Lee now on frankspeech.com.